Who doesn't like to talk about other people's L's? Now, when I look back at my personal journey with money, there's definitely been a lot of ups and downs. It never goes in a straight line. And even when I was making this video and I was thinking about all these old things that happened, it was painful. I wanted to cry. And now you get to learn from and probably laugh at my pain. So here are the 5 biggest money mistakes that I've made and what I learned from them. Number 5. Not building up a dividend portfolio while I was still working. I've talked about this before, but I didn't build up my dividend income while I was still working my 9-to-5 job. I focused on investing for retirement and growth assets, and for the most part it worked out pretty well. The issue was that I knew I didn't want to work at my 9-to-5 forever, and when I transitioned away from my job, I ended up having to pay a penalty on some of that money because I used it as my runway for doing my own thing. The better thing to do would have been to consistently put money into income generators like dividend stocks, and then by the time I left my job, I would have already had an income stream I could pull from. I see people argue about this a lot online, saying if you're young, you should only worry about growth, don't worry about dividends. And I think this is another example of where it really depends on what your goals are. If you love your 9-to-5 job or you already have an established business of your own where income isn't a question, then definitely just focusing on growth and retirement is fine. But if you're currently working and wanting to make that transition to being on your own like I was, building income streams is the absolute best way to get there. And I wish I'd known that sooner. Lesson: build up income streams beforehand if you plan to leave your 9-to-5 job. Number 4, getting rid of our first house instead of keeping it as a rental. My wife gets so annoyed with me because every time we talk about that house, I bring this up.
I really wish we would have kept the first house as a rental.
Earth-shattering news.
So we bought our first house in 2007, and we made all those first house mistakes that you make. We bought a house that was too big for us. We bought a house that was on like the main street of the neighborhood with a lot of traffic, but it was home and we loved it. And we ended up planning to move to a nicer part of town, but we decided to rent for a few years before we bought again. And for whatever reason, we sold that house instead of just renting it out and getting the cash flow. And it would have been a really good rental too. It's in a good location next to a bunch of schools, a university. We could have easily refinanced the rate to be about half of what we had when we bought it, and that would have gave us some really good cash flow. But I was just too afraid to be able to have to pay rent payments at the new place plus potentially a mortgage payment at the same time if we couldn't get it worked out. And at that time, that would have been tough for us. But in hindsight, if you have a nice asset, try to keep it to where it's earning appreciation and cash flow for you even after you've moved on. Definitely screwed that one up. Lesson: don't get rid of assets if you don't have to. Have them keep earning for you. Number 3, maxing out credit cards in college. See, back when I was in college, things looked a little like this. Okay, maybe not that bad, but one day I was walking through the courtyard and they had this folding table with a bunch of these white shirts on them. They were just a plain white shirt with that Jim Belushi college image on it, you know what I'm talking about? And they were basically giving them away for free, and you could get a free t-shirt and all you had to do was sign up for a credit card. No big deal, right? So what type of person would actually do that? Well, me. I did it. And then of course in true fashion, I took that credit card and I maxed it out because I was dumb, number 1, and number 2, just had a very poor understanding of money and how to be responsible with it. Now I really like credit cards, and I think they're a great financial tool to use if you're able to be responsible with them. As long as you're not overspending and you're paying it off every month, credit cards are great for giving you rewards, protecting the cash in your checking account from getting accessed, and building up your credit profile, which helps you get better rates and loans whenever you need them. But the key point in all that is that they're only a good financial tool if you're ready and responsible enough to use them. Otherwise, they can get you in trouble. Lesson: credit cards can be great, but only when you're ready for them. Also, never open a credit line for a t-shirt. Like ever. Number 2, not reducing risk at the end of 2021 after my investing style had changed. When I started investing, I was just a buy and hold investor of index funds, maybe a few stocks and some small positions in other things. But 90 to 95% was in index funds in my retirement account. And those are things that you buy and hold forever, so that's what I did. But as my situation improved, I started putting money into other things as well. Tech stocks, Bitcoin, other crypto assets, and they all did really well for a few years. And then 2021, they did really well as the government printed more money to combat the pandemic, so asset prices went crazy. And there I was, still holding, imagining how rich I was gonna be because everything's just gonna keep going up forever, right? And there were definitely some signs that I could have noticed. A lot of very wealthy people started to sell at the end of 2021. Elon Musk sold a bunch of Tesla shares, Jeff Bezos sold Amazon shares, Warren Buffett was continuously selling stocks, And look at this article right here, talking about Warren Buffett showing his fear in the market on November 9th, 2021. Almost at the absolute top of the S&P. And of course, there's articles like this all the time, and you can't just react in your portfolio anytime you read something. But the point is that there were a lot of signs happening around the same time that all could have sparked a little bit of doubt in my mind. But they didn't. But for our long-term hold positions and index funds and things like that, they're still there, just chugging away. It's just we had an opportunity to make a lot of money in the market and ended up giving a bunch back. Live and learn. Lesson: if you're investing in riskier assets, know when to take your wins. Number 1, having to sell Bitcoin in 2015 for a new AC unit. I've talked about this a bunch on the channel already, but I've been into Bitcoin since 2014. I bought a bunch of it when it was at about $244. Yep, you heard that right. But because I didn't have an emergency savings fund, I ended up selling it because the AC unit in our house went out. And my thought process at the time was, well, I don't want to pay credit card debt.
Because I have $30,000 in credit card debt.
So let me just sell this Bitcoin and I'll slowly buy it back over time. You know how that goes. But Bitcoin proceeded to go up 100x over the next 2 to 3 years, and then 250x in price by 2021. Just a brutal mistake. Now I will say, back in 2015, it would have been really hard to envision Bitcoin being $65,000 a coin, even though I believed in it. It was just really far away from that. But there I was, enjoying the central air in my home, thinking about how I could have been rich. But anyway, it was definitely my biggest money mistake and just means that I probably have the most expensive AC unit in the world. Lesson: always keep an emergency fund so you don't have to sell assets when life happens. So there's definitely things that I'll take from each one of these mistakes, but this is why they call it personal finance. Anybody out there that acts like they have all the answers and they've never made a money mistake, to me, it just tells me they haven't challenged themselves enough to make a mistake. And look, when I look at this list, I've made some pretty big ones. But when I compare my financial life today from where it was when I started, we're in a way better spot. And that's the whole point of this. Like, don't worry about making mistakes. Keep learning, keep progressing, and over time, your situation's gonna get better. And that's what really matters. Hope this video helped. If you guys are living paycheck to paycheck and you wanna know the steps to break that cycle, click on this video right here. Thanks for sticking around to the end. Hope you guys have a great day out there. Keep stacking those wins for your family, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.